Hello and welcome to Indie Nexus, the show that only eats ice. I am your host Chris aka Silverath, and today we are going to be doing a top 7 list. So, what is this top 10 list going to be today? It's going to be the top 7 must-play indie games. These are the indie games that are, in my opinion, a cut above all others, and since this is a channel that gives credit to indie developers, these are the 7 games that I think deserve the most credit. So, please enjoy the top 7 must-play indie game. Number 7, Town of Salem. Barely squeezing onto this list is a game loosely based around the Salem witch trials. Town of Salem is a multiplayer game where up to 15 players split into one of 3 teams: the town, the mafia, or neutral. Every player is assigned a unique role within the team the game chooses for them. The end goal of Town of Salem depends on your role. Townies must kill anyone who is considered evil, mafia must kill all the townies, and neutral? Well, neutral characters kind of have different goals depending on your role specifically. So why did Town of Salem barely squeeze onto this list? Because the interaction with the game itself is very minimal. The players do not move their character, they don't pick anything up, etc. The only thing the players do in-game is press a button to activate or use your ability. The fun of Town of Salem comes from the interaction within the player community. This means your fun is directly based on other players' ability to actually play the game correctly. And anybody who has played a cooperative game where you are unable to reach over and smack the other players with a stick know the horror of that statement. Your game can be completely ruined by one jackass who decided trolling is more fun than playing their actual role. Town of Salem has the potential to be a great role-playing game where you can truly get into the role of the person you are playing, or it could be one of the worst online experiences you'll have in a cooperative indie game. But that's kind of the point right there. It's a cooperative indie game. There is no single-player mode, it's all multiplayer. Honestly, this game wasn't even on this list until the very final draft. The only reason it's here is because, in my opinion, everyone should have to play a cooperative indie game at some point. And if you're going to have to do that, you might as well play a game where you have the ability to lynch anybody who pisses you off. Number 6, The Stanley Parable. This game is extremely simple. The Stanley Parable is one of the few games that I have come across that adhere to the less is more way of thinking and are actually able to pull it off well. Players take the role of Stanley, an office drone that has never had an original thought in his entire life. This changes one day when he looks around and notices all of his coworkers have mysteriously vanished. So being the good little boy that he is, Stanley chooses to search his office for his missing friends. Yeah, friends. Along the way, he is aided by a smart-mouthed narrator that guides him and explains everything that is happening so his weak little mind isn't overwhelmed by the sudden desire to think for himself. Or he doesn't! That's the premise of this game. You either do exactly what the narrator tells you, or you don't. The story progresses differently depending on your choices as the player. If you do the opposite of everything the narrator says, for example, he becomes very annoyed and begins scolding you on how you're not being a good little drone. I really can't explain all the possible paths you can take, because I personally haven't found them all myself yet. But the narrator has unique dialogue for nearly every one. It really feels like you have some weird guy watching you while you play, and it works really, really well. Number 5, Surgeon Simulator. Surgeon Simulator is probably one of the most popular games in the simulator genre. Basically, you are a highly trained professional surgeon and you have to operate on severely injured patients in order to save their lives. You are the only thing standing between them and death. And if by operate you mean smash their ribcage open with a hammer and yank out all of their internal organs, then get going, sport. You are given the task at the beginning of every operation. For example, the patient could need a new heart. Peachy. So, you would proceed to remove any and all obstacles that stand between you and the heart. After crushing this poor dude's ribcage, you then violently rip out any organs that might be in your way. Eventually, you find their heart, you rip out the old one, Indiana Jones style, and shove a new one in place. Yay! You won! Good job, Doctor. Who cares if he dies from blood loss? He has his new heart. Number 4, Broforce. Do you love America? Don't bother answering. This game don't give a 5-finger flaming fish to the jaw of a terrorist. Fuck about your answer. Welcome to Broforce, the most American game ever created. Explosions, guns, blood, explosions, freedom, muscles, explosions, and more, all that awaits you in this red, white, and blue indie game. Broforce is a side-scrolling shooter where you take the role of one of severally cleverly named badasses that are all the manliest men this side's of Manlyton. You are thrown into a small map filled with explosive and terrorists. If you can't figure out what happens next, well, I guess you're not worthy of being on the Broforce, are you? At the end of each level, you plant an American flag on the shredded corpse of a terrorist leader, jumping onto a rope ladder hanging out of a helicopter, and blowing up everything that isn't American. Long story short, this is the kind of game where after playing 10 minutes, you have grown a majestic full beard, and you're singing God Bless America while punching holes in the wall. Number 3, The Escapists. The Escapist is kind of like a jail simulator. Players are put into the role of an inmate in one of several different prisons. The end goal of the game is to escape the prisons by any means necessary, and I mean any means necessary. Along the way, players are to forge friendships with other inmates, collect illegal contraband, and bide their time waiting for the perfect chance to escape. Listen, you cannot rush this game. This is not a game you can sit down and beat in 10 minutes. Trust me, it's not. I've tried. In order to dominate and understand the routine of the prison, players have to play along with a very strict daily schedule of prison life, and trust me, if you don't, you will get the shit beat out of you. Patience is extremely important, as rushing will get you caught, beaten up, and thrown in solitary confinement. There are multiple ways to escape, so it's up to you as the player to find your own way out. Do you obtain a screwdriver and unscrew air vents to escape? Or do you cause a massive prison riot and sneak out in the ensuing chaos? I don't know if you can do that, but I bet you can. The choice is yours. Number 2, Don't Starve or Don't Starve Together. Note, these are the same game except for one is single player and the other is multiplayer respectively. I do recommend Don't Starve Together because this game is 100 times more fun and funny with your friends. You don't believe me? Go try it out, you naysayer. Don't Starve and Don't Starve Together are games where you are thrown into a strange land and you must use basic resources around you to survive. This game stands out from other wilderness survivals for 2 major reasons. Firstly, the art style looks like something that was pulled directly from the mind of Tim Burton, and if you don't think that's awesome, you're a dick. And secondly, everything that exists is trying to murder you. Everything living, inanimate, mobile, immobile. Hell, even the things that are already dead are trying to kill you. Hell, stick around long enough and even the trees try to kill you. Don't Starve is an absolutely brutal game where players have to manage their health, sanity, and hunger levels. If any of those resources drop too low, the player suffers for it. And there is never a quiet moment, as there are creatures in this game whose sole purpose in life is to hunt you down and rip your face off through your ass. You will die playing this game. I guarantee it. If you're not dying, you're not playing the game correctly. Hell, starvation might be the least of your concerns. Number 1. Life is Strange. Almost anybody who has played this game knows why it is on this list and why it is number 1 on this list. Originally, Don't Starve had been my choice for number 1, but while I was writing the script for this list, I found myself listening to theories about the game's final chapter, looking up when said chapter would be released, and at one point I honestly found myself replaying the game because it's just that damn good. While action in this game is non-existent, the game more than makes up for it in its story and puzzles. One day, she saves her old friend Chloe from being shot by a drug dealer, and in so doing, discovers that she has the ability to rewind time. Dandy, right? Well, let's just say there may be some serious consequences to screwing around with time. I won't spoil any more than that. If you ignore every other game on this list, and I really don't recommend that you do that, you have to check out Life is Strange. This game is an emotional roller coaster that will leave you crying in a hole in the middle of a forest just so you can be close to small fuzzy things that love it when you hug them. Oh, and one last thing. This game supports a distinct licensed indie soundtrack. Indie for the win, baby.